This podcast is a product of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Nothing in this podcast should be considered legal advice. To find a collaborative professional near you, visit www.collaborativepracticeflorida.com. I'm Catherine Eaton, a member of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. I'm a family law attorney and a mediator. And on today's podcast, our guests are Laurie Spector. She's a JD MBA realtor at Compass, and she's a principal of the Spector Advisory Group. As a real estate professional and a former attorney and business consultant, she founded an invitation-only JD group within the Compass of Real Estate Advisors with legal experience. Also today is Refael. She's a mortgage professional at Fairway Home Mortgage. She's a certified divorce lending professional and focuses on divorcing homeowners, coordinating home equity, mortgage, tax, and real estate issues in divorce settings in South Florida. Welcome to the FACP podcast, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it.
I'd like to start off our conversation by asking each of you how you became involved with the collaborative process and incorporated it to your professional life.
I'll start.
Sure.
Because it started for me very organically, because I had clients about 15 years ago starting to come and ask me to refinance a home or to try and buy a new home. And being that they were divorced, I was asking for the divorce settlement agreement. And I was finding out too many times that I couldn't do what the agreement said. And people were upset that they have to reopen their case. And they say, why can't I? I said, because when you did the agreement, nobody actually checked that you qualified to do a buyout or to buy something else or to create qualified income vehicles. So I said, I need to get to the attorneys before they made the party sign. Mm-hmm. And since I've been involved with that, it's so much better. People are getting so much more value because they check what is being done before they sign.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Laurie, how did you find out about collaborative and start getting
organically, I would say as well. Actually, it's a good word for it. It turns out I was playing pickleball with a couple of friends of mine, and then a new girl came to the pickleball court that day. And this lovely lady, I started talking to her, what do you do? This sort of thing. And it turns out she's Tammy Berman, our local president of the South Florida Association for Collaborative Professionals. And she told me that she's a mental health professional, a therapist. And, you know, we started to get to know each other a little bit more. And I told her what I did, which is real estate, and that I had this group, which you mentioned, Catherine, called the JD Group, or it's now called the Law Grads of Compass Group. So as you mentioned, I'm with Compass, and I have a small team. One of the things that I founded as a realtor at my company at Compass is a nationwide group of professionals that all went to law school and now practice full-time as real estate agents. And I have over 100 people in the group. And I was trying to find a good topic for one of our Zoom calls. Mm-hmm. And therein came Tammy, and she introduced me some people and collaborative, because we were trying to do a family law and divorce segment on, you know, how real estate professionals can better serve families going through trauma and divorce and conflict. And Tammy invited me to one of their meetings. I got certified in collaborative recently. And within the past year, you know, everything has changed. And I'm so excited to have joined the group. Yeah. It has so much to offer. It's been so welcoming, and they receive new members so nicely. And I just think that collaborative is 100% the way to go. With my background in, you know, in the law and now in real estate, I advocate all the time, you know, for clients or loved ones, if they're going through situations, you know, divorce situations, to try to explore the collaborative route. And I actually give them the books, the handouts, and the materials for them to compare and contrast with, like, you know, all the benefits. And it's not for everybody, but it's for a vast majority of the people. It's just, it would be great if more people knew about collaborative, to be able to explore all the benefits that it offers. Yes. So that's my story. I love pickleball, but I also love collaborative, and I think they go great together. I need
That's
to
a
join
good
you to
story.
pickleball. Yeah, no, we need to get it started again. We
Yes.
could do a whole collaborative pickleball
Okay.
contest.
I like that. So, why do you think that the collaborative process is gaining such traction in Florida?
Well, when I went to law school, I'll start.
Go
When I
ahead.
went to law school, we never learned about collaborative. I graduated from law school in 2006. And when I went to law school, our family law classes were very boilerplate. Basically, we're reading from these archaic cases and journals and old textbooks of, just the process of family law litigation and divorce. And you focus mainly on litigation. Then you also talk a little bit about mediation. Never did we ever talk about something else. And that something else is something that's not, so novel, but it's new. And I'm hoping that it's going to, get more traction over time. And a lot of the judges, I understand, are really happy that collaborative came into the picture because it's speeding up the process and it's unclogging their dockets.
Yes.
We have a lengthy process here in Florida. Litigation can be a year or 2 years sometimes, and so on and so forth, even longer. So it's been nice. I see it to be very beneficial, mainly when there's something of interest that the couple both kind of wants or has in mind to preserve. So, i.e., an asset, children with special needs, something that has to be kind of molded together with a team approach. And I think it works really well in that environment. So I think it's taking shape. And I know that the judges that I've spoken to are super excited to bring it up to people before they start the process, maybe to think about another avenue.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely
So,
the idea of understanding that this is even existing. Most people
exactly.
said that I spoke to and I said, I did not know about it. I wish I knew about its process. And so many times when you describe how it goes, and he said it would have been at the end so much more economical, so much better, especially if they're small kids. I call it make a divorce, but the kids are not suitcase in an airport. Don't drag them here, there, and everywhere. They're the foremost in the front line first, and then we do the other stuff.
So, Raquel and Laurie, you do different things professionally, but what you do intersects, and obviously you know each other and you've worked together in the collaborative process. So can you share how what you do, how it intersects, and how you can help couples in the collaborative process with your knowledge?
Yeah, I can say something that just happened a couple months ago where a realtor called me and told me that she has a client referral. She's getting a divorce and she needs to be approved for a mortgage. I said, stop. Why? Because I wanted to talk to her before they actually get a divorce. Here is what happens when somebody's still married. They have an exclusion for capital gains on their sale of their home of 500,000. If they're single, it's only 250. So when I spoke to them, I said, stop, make sure that you sell the house before you get the divorce finalized. That saved them something like about $60,000 in capital gains. And then I further said, don't take the money and put it in a checking or savings account because we want to create from this money an income producing qualified income for a mortgage. So we created a trust, we put the money in an account, and now she has an additional income so she can qualify for a mortgage further down. We are talking now because the house sold, they created the account. So speaking to a realtor, had she not called me before all this thing was done, they would have had to pay too much in taxes. She wouldn't have had the ability to use this as an income. So it is crucial to work together, real estate, mortgages, and know how to create for the underwriter like in the divorce, you have the judges, we have underwriters that are
That's
our
your judge, right?
Yeah, that's our judge to make sure that they will say yes, and to be able to help a couple to move forward, ahead. There's nothing more rewarding than to know that they actually can.
Yeah, I
That's a
also
wonderful example because I will tell you that the majority of people that I know have no idea of those points that Raquel just made.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that because I know people listening will be, what? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Lori,
that's
what
super
were you going to
important.
say?
I was going to say another important factor is before they just throw in the towel and they decide that neither one of them can live in the house or they don't have the wherewithal, the assets, we can really sit down, because it's a team approach and collaborative, to speak with the proper mortgage professional, the proper financial neutral, to put all of the pieces together prior to anything happening before they have this brainstorming situation or one spouse says, I'm doing this. Sometimes we've seen that it's better to keep the property, even if neither one of the spouses can afford to keep it, and turn it into an income producing property, for instance, or an Airbnb. So we have situations like that. Also, I've been court appointed in a lot of cases by some of the local judges. And I find that before I get started with the attorneys, I give them, from my experience, I have like a checklist of items that can go into court orders, or at least even into a listing agreement, so that there's an understanding of the process and the way that we're going to, play nice in the sandbox, so that all of the what ifs are already written down and reduced to writing. So we have an agreement prior to anything that I've foreseen could happen going sideways. So that's super important. And if you're not working with an experienced professional who does a lot of court appointments, or just I work with probate files and family law, and it's important to know the intricacies of all the what ifs and to be very detail oriented, especially with the deadlines and things of this sort. And if a spouse isn't super savvy with contracts, these are things that it takes an expert to go through with them in advance, so that we don't have a one-day default because one spouse wants to, have the last word on something, and then we have a really big issue with the sale of the property for whatever reason.
Lori, you just mentioned your checklist. Can you just give an example of a few things that are on your checklist?
Sure. Yeah, I have, times of day that the showings will be happening, access to the property, cleanliness of the property. If one of the spouses chooses to buy out the other spouse midway through the process, how that's going to look, because this will happen oftentimes. Sometimes the spouses both say that they're not planning to stay there and things will change, and it's very dynamic midway through. If they realize that the buyer who they got the offer from is offering X amount of dollars and that's the only offer they have, and they can actually beat that offer, they might their wheels are starting to spin. So we have to put together a plan of how that's going to look in advance. The other item that I put on there is how the presentation of the offers is going to look, whether it's a multiple offer situation, or if we've agreed on the price, whether it's through an appraised value or through my own comparative market analysis. At what price point are we going to accept an offer, so that we have sort of a unified decision-making process from the get-go, so we're not relying on one spouse or the other, and it's all set forth in the paperwork. And it doesn't necessarily need to be presented and signed off on, but I like to at least present it so it's not a surprise later on, so we go through and there's no minefields that we're going to walk into later on through the process.
One thing that I will mention with that, because things do change midway, is that if an appraised value changes, if the market shifts and the interest rate changes, that's why I love the collaborative, because we condense time. Instead of saying, okay, you qualify for X in January, but now we're in August. The market is totally gone. We are in a different market, and we need to look at these things again in a different way with different numbers, recalculate everything. So when you say that you give this checklist, to know that this could happen if we just prolong the process. And if the people are willing to make sure that each other go into their own ways not just try to make them fall, because if you make them fall, it doesn't make you rise. So
That's true. And that's what's different about collaborative. I agree with you, is that it is this team approach, and people are coming up with ideas and options that are creative and that work. And it's not about winning or rising or falling. It's about creative solutions that
Mhm.
make sense for everybody.
Mhm.
So I know that
I'll
you
give you
guys,
another
okay.
example that happened a couple years ago. It was a referral from one of the attorneys, and they said the wife wants to keep the house, the husband wants to keep the house, but neither one of them can qualify. So what do we do? I said, what if we have each one of them go to their network of family and say, can we find somebody to co-sign with us? And the first one that will find that co-signer, and we can do the numbers and they will qualify, this person will keep the home for the child and themselves. They both went out, looked. Luckily, because it was a collaborative, we worked all together. The wife came with somebody that was co-signing for her, a very good friend, which I salute her for doing that. But towards the end, because things have shifted a little bit, the appraised value, the interest rate, we couldn't take as much money out of the property as we thought. And we were short like about $7,500. So I went back to the attorney and I said, look, she's buying him out, and the process cost her about $15,000. Would it be okay if they shared this cost? And she came to me and she said, Racheli, this is a collaborative. We can ask. Let's see if we get. We asked and we got and we closed. So each
That's
one of them moved to their own way. And it wouldn't have happened if this was a litigation case, because this one
that's
was
exactly.
fighting with this one is not going to help this. I'm not going to show her. This was like a picture perfect situation.
And a
And
judge would never consider those options. The
yeah,
judge can't even do that. The judge says either sell it or you get it or you get it. But
yeah.
all of those details, even if you go through the expense and time of a trial, those details that you two are talking about are not going to be in the final judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you two are both down in South Florida, down in Broward. So talk to me about what's going on in the 17th Judicial Circuit and the
So
time frames.
yeah, so I think I brought that up briefly. I'm hearing that the timeframes for litigation are about 12 to 24 months currently. Not to say that collaborative is always faster than that, but I would say a majority of the time, it can be done in a lot more efficient and speedy manner, because you don't have to wait for a judge's determination on things, and you can actually, in some cases, the team is so flexible that they can even schedule appointments on the weekends or after hours, what fits with the spouse's schedule. So that's one of the really important highlights with regards to collaborative. I was actually speaking to a couple of the family court judges last night at the Broward Bar's holiday party, and their dockets are tight. They have a lot of files, and the caseload is very heavy. The amount of time that a couple will get in front of the judges is nominal in compared to what you can do when you can sit around a table to really get granular with all the details that are important to the people, and they're real people, and they can't be treated just as a case number.
Yeah.
Working with a team of professionals is game changing, people that you know and trust. When I work with somebody like Racheli or any of the other people that I've met through the South Florida group, it's just, I know and trust them. We hit the ground running. We know what each other is doing. There's no question as to whether or not this is going to get done. We feel secure in one another. And it's a really nice dynamic to work with a team of professionals that have worked together before, that are trained in something as, as detail oriented as someone's future, their divorces, obviously.
I'm hearing that even to get a hearing in front of a judge could take months, where in a collaborative, we call the team, we set it up, and we discuss it. Don't have to wait. And again, if you have to wait for a hearing for months, what you had now in 6 months from now may be changing.
The market is so dynamic anywhere in Florida.
Yes.
What we're seeing is in South Florida, at least, we're expecting to see our prices escalate by about 3.5% potentially next year. But if you go too slow or you go too fast, that changes dramatically. Depending on what's going to happen with our interest rates nationwide, we're expecting about 6%.
We're hoping.
Yeah. And that is not up to us, we can't time everything. So it's really important that everybody's available to execute decisions as quickly as possible when the time arises, when it's the pivotal time. So these are things that we can control more with collaborative.
That's right. So Racheli, talk a little bit about, because you keep saying everything keeps changing. So can you give a description of, what are the things that keep changing with the parties? I mean, what all of those parts. So what are we talking about?
Yeah, the big two is interest rate and valuation. So if interest rate was 6 and now it's 6.5, or it was 6.5 and now it's 7.5. And we had some periods, I've been doing it for 30 years, where all of a sudden rates just jumped. It was like a wild horse running and we couldn't catch it. So if I was to tell somebody that they qualify for X and the market shifted, that horse is gone. We have to recalculate. And the idea of using not every income in the mind of attorneys, well, they get this income, is considered as qualified income in the mortgage world. So we need to cover those things and talk about them. The other two things is homestead and portability. This is something, and I'm very good friends with our Broward County property appraiser. And because of cases that I was coming across, I said, Marty, we need to do something. People are getting divorced, but they cannot take their portability, their homestead portability, to their next home because one spouse is staying in the house. The only way to take portability is if the house is sold. So when we do the agreement, we need to take in consideration this, the effect that those things.
Right. It can be written up in advance so that at the time that the future sale does happen, that there's some sort of agreement to that, but it needs to be discussed early on so that the Save Our Homes portability can be later preserved for sure. And at the right percentages.
Yes, because most people don't even know that this comes into the equation.
And we have also professionals that we work with that can help with those sort of things in advance. It's important to have the connections.
Yeah.
Can you one of you just explain a little bit what portability is? Because I think that most people listening they know what homestead is, but they don't know what portability is. So just a quick definition or description of what it is.
Okay. You want to do it?
Sure. So it's really, there's a Save Our Homes valuation when you look at your property on the property appraiser's website for whatever county you live in. It will have a Save Our Homes valuation, and there's a differential, and every single property appraiser's office is so nice to work with, and they'll help you understand it better. But there should be a calculator or a way for you to figure out that differential and the amount of tax savings that you'll receive from porting or transferring the purchase, valuation to where the future property is going to be. And the algorithm can be different based on each county, but it can be a significant savings. I was talking to a client of mine yesterday who said he's been carrying his portability with him for 29 years. And he currently has a property that's close to $1 million and he's only paying $3,300 in taxes a year. So it's super important to be mindful of that facet. And it's not something that's automatic. You really need to get the ball rolling, get the paperwork started on your own. But it's a really easy phone call to the property appraiser where you live, or you can do it online through their website. And if you haven't looked into it, it's a good time to look into it now.
Definitely. If I can give just a simple example, let's say that you've lived in your home for 10 years and you bought the home for about 300,000. Now the value of this home might be 700,000. But the portability that you can take to your next home, your real estate taxes are based on, let's say, 350,000. You can take that part of the real estate tax bill and port it to the next home. So your taxes will be lowered because they're based on the 350, not the 700. So the taxes are much more favorable.
And then follow that through, Racheli. So then you take it to your next home and say your next home is, it's certainly going to be more than 300 or 350.
Mhm.
So then what happens? What's the next step? You buy a home that
So if the portability, let's say it's 350 and you buy at, again, a $700,000 home, the first 350 will be taxed as the old, and the new 350, the difference, will be
Right.
taxed as the new. So it definitely saves you a lot of money.
Thank you for explaining that. So let's talk about the pitfalls of the wrong people that help you sell your house in a divorce. So we talked about all the good things that you guys can do and help in the collaborative process. So let's look at it the opposite side. So if they don't find you and they don't have the right people, what are some of the pitfalls that could happen?
I would start with, that's how I got involved with this, because I wanted to educate people to let them know, and especially the attorney, that there is a process that we should do before signing the agreement. Too many times people are, because they don't know, they don't use professional like ourselves and you, they make mistakes. And I will give you an example. This one happened 2.5 years ago. A client of mine came to me. She was getting a divorce and she was awarded the house. She needed to refinance to get him out of the property. And I said to her, yeah, we can do it. However, if you're not legally divorced, he needs to still sign the mortgage. And she, no, 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 no. I said, okay, so we need to wait until you are divorced. They were towards the end of their process. So I said, okay, when you finish, we'll do. They finished their divorce, but little did I know, even though it said on the agreement that he is supposed to continue making mortgage payments throughout the process until the divorce is final, he didn't.
Mm.
And because she was not on the mortgage, she did not know that.
And she
But
couldn't call the mortgage. She wasn't getting the statements and she couldn't call
no.
the mortgage company. She couldn't even call up if she's not on the mortgage. She couldn't have called to find out the status. You're
Yeah,
right.
because I asked her, in order to do a refinance, you need to have a mortgage history. And because it's not on her credit, because she's not on a mortgage, we need the letter from the lender, the current lender. And we were not getting it. And finally, I said, can I have the phone number of your ex-husband? I need to know what's going on. Why am I not getting it? Finally, I called and he was like, how would I say it? He was walking between the drops where I'm going to put the drop on him, the bomb. I
He
said,
was being cagey.
yes, yes. And he said to me, well, I submitted the paperwork to do a forbearance that I couldn't make the payments. And I said, did you go through the entire process? Well, they sent me the papers. I said, did you sign the papers? No, he didn't. So we called together the mortgage to find out. And the mortgage was to blame too also because they didn't even start proceedings August to March. They didn't file anything. I don't know how they did it, but they didn't. This lady was able to qualify for a mortgage. The rates were 3.5%. But because of what had happened, she had to wait to make 12 months on-time payments in order to get a refinance. The following year, her mortgage was 6.99%.
Wow.
So luckily she was able to afford it, but not knowing some of those little things ahead of time can be costly. If she couldn't qualify, she couldn't get him off. So it's so important, this collaborative, talking together, hashing out those things can
finding out the details and the truth of exactly what the finances are. And sometimes people are embarrassed because he went into or started the forbearance process. So he probably, was having some financial difficulty. People don't start that process if the cash flow was good. So there was probably some embarrassment about it. And so people aren't forthcoming when that happens. So I think collaborative is a soft haven, or how do you girls, ladies, how do you, what would you describe the environment for people who have something that they're embarrassed about?
I at least at my company, what we do is we have something special called private exclusive. We have a way to sell the property oftentimes without broadcasting it to the world. And a lot of what goes on in collaborative is people are aiming towards collaborative because they want that confidentiality. They don't want a court record following them. And this is another way for us to avoid putting a sign in the ground and advertising to the neighborhood that this couple is going through this hard time. It's important.
Yeah, a divorce sale, right?
Yes.
Right. And they also want to protect the nomenclature of, a distress sale or something of that sort.
Right.
So we can go ahead and we can do what's called a private exclusive at Compass. And we have the ability to sell it we can try to sell it within the Compass network. And we have, there's no time limit for that. We can put it on the market in that fashion for as long as the couple wishes to. So it's another choice that the sellers can make. And that's what collaborative is all about. It's about empowering the owners of these properties to be able to make the best choices for themselves. And there's no cookie cutter answer for how these processes should go down. I will say also that it's vital when people are selecting their team or even their attorney, that if they're going to work in a collaborative fashion, and they have the mindset that they're working together, that process has to be open-minded the entire way. And everybody in the team needs to be of the same mindset, that we're here to have the same end game, have the same goals, that there isn't a smoking gun somewhere and someone's trying to
pull something.
Exactly. And it's very important that the people that are running the team or alongside of the couple have the experience with conflict cases, because if they don't have that experience, it becomes much more adversarial. And then people lose sight of what the goal was and how they can achieve it in a peaceful manner. I think having experience such as, mine with previous litigation experience, where I really understand what's very important, like a life or death situation versus just, small things that come up along the way. There's always a resolution. There's always a negotiation or a compromise that can be made that will result in something that will be beneficial to both parties. And working and communicating openly and having that peaceful dialogue is something that you can't necessarily expect a new agent to have, or somebody without experience. It takes years of knowledge and training to be able to think for a second and redirect when there is a situation that comes up. And it's invariable, always going to happen. There's always going to be something that somebody wasn't expecting. So to have a right team is vital.
Yeah, to discuss the important stuff and don't let the little ants just go and make the noise. And I would say it's more of a safe environment for everybody. And when I do mortgages, I joke with people, I said, I'm going to undress you financially to your core. I'm going to ask you a question that maybe will be a little bit of embarrassing. Where did this deposit come from? Where did you do with this? And I'm not judging you. I'm just need to make sure that I structure it right so we can get the yes from the judge, the underwriter. And I'm not holding it against you. It is what had happened. So let's put all the cards on the table and then let's see what hand can we play to make it better for you and your to-be ex-spouse.
when we started this conversation, Racheli, you were talking about the collaborative process and about how, the children are so important. And, sometimes people want to have the house for the children. But what I would say is what you two ladies, after the children, you want to make sure they're happy, healthy, safe. What people have in their heart really is that house. So that house, that marital home has such an emotional component to it. So, and, it's scary, there's emotions. They want to have it for the children. They want to have a roof over their head. Can you just speak a little bit to about um, the house and how um, your experience with your clients and that emotion and how you can help them through those emotions and look at the logical and professional components. How do you guys help people? Because after the children, the next thing that's big on their list and need help with is the house, and that's what you two are doing.
Yeah, and I will answer this question with a story of another client that I was helping. He's a firefighter and he was a veteran. And they bought the home that the wife grew up in. And this was the family home for quite a few years. She wanted by any means to maintain that home, to keep it. And we did not know because she couldn't qualify at the time. What we ended up doing, and they're forever grateful that we were able to do that, because he had a veteran loan. And a veteran loan is one of the only ones that you can actually assume. But she's not a veteran. We discussed with the current lender. We prepared her documentation. I was discussing with the attorneys what would be the financial support, the spousal support, the child support, what that number needs to be for her to be able to afford this home. And by working together, they were able to keep that childhood home of hers, and which became the childhood home of her kids, both of their kids. And luckily, because they were willing, he said, I want to make it happen if it's possible. And we worked the numbers to the point that it was done. And it's an amazing feeling to know that, yes, it's a divorce, it's not a fun time, but you were actually able to achieve something for the both of them, which left him with enough so he can go and move to his own home. And she kept her childhood home. It was amazing. I can't tell you how wonderful it was. Story. Yeah.
So, in closing, what tips can you give people listening from your advice as collaborative professionals in the real estate and mortgage businesses?
If I can say is, before you even speak to an attorney, when you start germinating the idea, I am getting a divorce, I am not continuing this marriage, get some information, talk to some people. And I would like to do more of those educational podcasts for people where they can chime in, ask some questions, get some guidance before they just pull the plug. And I think it's very important, because the first thing, okay, I want to get a divorce, I'm going to go to the lawyer. And for the most part, if the lawyer is a litigator, that's the process that they will go by. So I would say just pause, get some facts, get an idea. What happens with a house? Because honestly, for most people, the house, the family home, the marital home is the biggest asset that they have.
Exactly.
Imagine in 2008, when I was doing that, people didn't have assets in their home. They were upside down.
Yeah.
They were underwater.
I don't want it. You can have it. Right? has to take that home and all that debt?
Get me out of here. Yeah. But right now we have this equity that a lot of people have. It enables us to do things that we couldn't do before. We can, if they don't want the home or they can't afford, this is too big of a home, sell the home, be able to take those proceeds, buy two homes. But all these things have to be discussed before anything is decided.
And Racheli, answer this for me. It's my understanding that if one of the parties is working to assume the current mortgage, that the mortgage judge is going to look at it differently if a divorce is pending versus if divorce is not pending, right? That's one
Correct.
of the, okay. So
Correct. Because
again, you
the
need to,
person who's staying in the house has to be able to carry the mortgage payment with taxes, insurance, and association if there is any. And when we do the calculation, like this couple that I mentioned before, we knew that they were getting a divorce, and all these pieces were presented to the underwriter ahead of time. So there were no surprises last minute. They knew what to expect. And yes, the person need to be able to carry the knot. Like this lady with the veteran. She, in the beginning, she could not. We had to structure it in a way that she would. If she could not have assumed the VA mortgage that was at like, I think 4%, which rates when we did it were like close to 8. There's no way she could qualify. But because I had the knowledge to bring the thing, let's talk to the lender. Would they allow us to assume for her to assume the mortgage? Otherwise,
and, but these are things that need to be discussed, planned, and decided before
yes,
that filing, because
yes,
just to confirm, sometimes a pending divorce, that filing affects the underwriting,
yes, yes,
right?
because
So
it
if they
might
had
come
already
up.
filed, that wouldn't have been an option, probably.
Yeah. No, we knew that they were getting a divorce. We knew that, and it was presented that way.
Yeah,
I did not end up doing the mortgage, but I ended up helping them move to their own way because she was able to assume the mortgage that the husband had, or
right.
ex-husband now. But he, to guide him on what the numbers should be so he can afford later on to move on and buy his own place. Otherwise,
Yeah.
she would not be happy. He would not be happy. The kids would not be happy. It's not going to be a happy ending. But in
Right.
this case, it was.
So it seems like the takeaway is, and Laurie, I'm going to ask you if you've got a tip too, but it seems like the takeaway is all of this planning and options are available through the collaborative process, and they're options that the parties can decide on and discuss. And there's more options than if they had started with filing, because that limits the options. What's your opinion, Laurie, as to?
So one of my takeaways from this conversation that I was just thinking about was I think a lot of people, when they think they might want to get divorced, like their first instinct is to pick up the phone and call that, pit bull sort of litigation attorney that's going to get them for everything, the other, get the most amount that they can get. You have to take a step back and pause and really think about the best interests of the family in the long term, because after the divorce, it's still a family, excuse me. And I also wanted to remind anyone listening that you don't just have to go to the lawyer first and ask the questions and start in that direction. There are a lot of professionals in the industries that you have concerns with that will give you free consultations, that will talk to you about the specific concerns that you have, because there's no one size fits all approach. Everybody has something particular to them that's going on that's unique. And maybe starting the conversation from that angle is a better approach than just going to the attorney who has a broad-based knowledge on, the process. But knowing the particular players, the team players that will be helping along the way with all that industry knowledge is so important. Racheli and I, we work alongside each other, but if I don't know the answer to something that's her lane, that's where we come in together. So working with the collaborative attorney from the get-go, even if it doesn't end up working for the spouses to go in the collaborative direction, it's a good place to start, because we do this team's approach. Instead of hiring two different investigators to check out each other's financials, we start at a peaceful fashion and we work together the entire time. It's building blocks. So I suggest people to look into it. I'm glad that you have this podcast, and thank you for inviting us to it. If we can ever service or help anybody, we're available for free consultations. And I think it's
And how do
important.
they find you? You're available? So tell everyone how they can find you.
So I have a website. It's lauriespector.com. And best way to reach me is through that. My phone number is 954-608-7104. And that's my cell. And I love talking to people and helping them through the next phases of their lives. And sometimes we can put the pieces back together, and it doesn't have to be, the fashion that they think that things are going to go in. So peace is a good ending.
Peace is a good ending. And I will say something to end. I know of a case that they wanted to start it and do it equally. When the husband offered 50-50 and let's finish, after 5 years and $600,000 in legal fees, she ended up getting less than what was offered in the beginning. So don't think
that's usually the case. The best offers are up front.
Yes.
And then they go down. People get
Also,
worn
when
out.
you get an offer on a house, usually it's the best offer, right?
100%.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good to know. That's good
Yeah.
to know, because sometimes people say, if we had held out, would we have gotten more? So you're saying usually the first offer is the best. Good to
Yeah.
know. And so,
And
Racheli, how can people find you? Because Laurie just
people
said,
can reach me. It's my website is loans-4-4-u.com. It's my phone number, 954 Loans for You. It's the tag in my car if you see me driving around. So I love to help people. Reach out, and don't hide and not reach out, because at the end you will hurt yourself. Reach out.
that's good.
We're here for you.
Wonderful. Thank you both for appearing on the FACP podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
This is great. Thank you so much.